Melissa Sinfio, and I'm your Associate Manager of Communications and Activation. Welcome to From Interest to I'm In. In this breakout, we have two amazing leaders who are anxious to share their tried and true tips and ideas that, when put into action, will help you turn the interest your story creates into a new team member. Now, before I hand it over to them, here's what you'll learn about in this workshop: how to guide a conversation after someone shows interest, how to ask simple, meaningful questions that build connection, how to explain what getting started looks like in a clear, relatable way, and you'll walk away with a natural, low pressure approach to inviting next steps. Advanced Director Christy Burks started in February of 2022. She went back and forth several times, but shares that it was the $25 kit that made her finally say yes. Christy is most proud of earning excellence in recruiting this year. It only happened because she was at conference last year. It really changed her life and made her realize she needed to share this with so many other people. Becky Adams started in August of 2014. Becky wanted the cool and serve, and it was in the kit. That was the cheapest way to get it, so she decided to sign up. Something she's most proud of is that she was the first executive all-virtual team. As we were talking about the planning for today, one thing I noticed immediately is that you both come from a place of being very curious about people and why Pampered Chef might interest them. Not if, but how. And we often hear that it's better to guide someone to Pampered Chef than to have to convince them. So first, what would you say about guiding versus convincing, and also starting at that place of curiosity to help you know which direction to go? Becky, let's start with you.
Sure. For me, everything starts with curiosity, mine and theirs. For someone who's already curious, I guide them to do what they've already made this decision to do. They usually just need to clarify a few things before they join. And I'm basically just reconfirming what they already know. So for the ones that aren't already curious, I'm curious to find out why. They're the ones that need a little convincing to see that this really could be something for them. I ask what level of interest they have so I know if I'll be guiding or convincing.
I love that. If you're using curiosity to understand what's holding someone back, you can really help them see something in themselves that they might not see yet. Now, before we move on, it would be great for you both to model what this sounds like, because I think sometimes people hear be curious, but still don't know what that means in a real conversation. So, Becky, can you share a little about how you convince from curiosity?
Sure. And it is completely a different kind of conversation for sure. Oftentimes, a no is just a yes in disguise. So when you hear no, you need to listen. What they're really saying is, oh, I would if I could, but I can't. I'm too busy. I don't have any money. I don't know enough people. You've all have heard those no's before, right? How you respond, though, makes all the difference. Your job is to be a problem solver and show them how they can. This is where the convincing comes in. I'm curious to see what their level of interest would be if those concerns were removed. So once I know their level of interest, I know which way to lead the conversation. If their level of interest is low, I ask what needs to happen for them to be a 10. I lead the conversation with the questions and turn that conversation around to find out what does interest them rather than what doesn't interest them. Now the desire is there. It's a lot easier to convince someone to do something that interests them.
So, Becky and Christy, let's pretend you're having a conversation.
I've kind of thought about doing Pampered Chef, but I don't know. I'm not sure how I'd fit it in.
What's making you curious about it, Becky?
Honestly, the extra money.
Well, that's totally understandable. What would that extra income help you most with right now?
Probably groceries, gas, all my kids' activities.
Well, that's exactly why a lot of people do start. Most people are surprised that this can fit into a small pockets of time throughout their day. How much time do you think that something like this actually takes?
Now, notice what Christy didn't do. She didn't explain the whole business. She stayed focused on understanding Becky first. That's what keeps the conversation moving naturally and starts to build trust. You're showing interest in that person. Christy, you have some experience with this. Can you share?
Sure. And I didn't always do that. I used to word vomit everything on everybody. I'd tell them all the things and just overwhelm them. What really changed for me was when I attended conference last year and I got into an accountability group and surrounded myself with people who recruited well, and I learned I needed to slow down and just ask one question at a time, let them talk. And then that way, guide the conversation from there. I just followed up with what I knew to be true. And that was a game changer for me to learn that. Now I just try to focus on understanding them first and not explaining everything. And that's the shift. Sometimes less explaining and more understanding. Learning to be curious and asking questions helps you figure out what really matters to that person.
So, when someone seems interested, what's the first thing you say?
Normally, I try to get them off of Messenger and onto a quick phone call. So I'll just, say, hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat? And that's really changed things for me. If I can get them on the phone, then they can hear my excitement, I can hear them, understand them better, to ask better questions. And then I can really guide them from there. And I've found that really builds trust fast. Then I start with whatever's sparking their interest specifically. Is it the income, products, or the kit? So I ask them, what's sparking your interest? And then we take the conversation from there. If you look at my messenger, you'll see most of my conversations go directly to that question.
That's great. And Christy's strategy is really personal connection first. She's not sending more messages, she's changing the environment of the conversation. Becky, can you share a little bit?
Sure. I do everything through text. Once they show interest, I keep it really simple. I want to know what interests them the most. Then I focus on that, but tie it back to how much money they'd like to make and how much time they have to spend on it.
Now, I'd like to ask everybody to notice something important here. Becky isn't asking random questions. She asks a simple question and then she listens for that direction. Becky, what are the questions you're using during the conversations?
I have 5 go-to questions that I use most often. 1, on a scale of 1 to 10, how interested are you? 2, what would need to happen for you to be a 10? 3, if that wasn't an issue, what would interest you the most? 4, how much money would you like to make each month if you could? And how much time each day could you spend on your business to make that much income? And 5, do you have more questions? Or are you just ready to get started today? There isn't much more conversation in between those questions.
And Christy, how about you?
I ask a lot around time because that's the biggest objection that I normally hear. I hear a lot of people just say, I don't have time for this. So being curious, I'll ask them, how much time do you think that this really takes? And most people don't even know. That usually opens the door for me to help them understand what's actually realistic. That becomes a huge conversation for me because they're shocked at how much they can make in just working a few hours a week. And, if you ever freeze during a conversation and you don't know what to say next, you can use, the simple framework of feel, felt, found. So an example, I don't have time, acknowledge that and say, I understand how you feel. I felt the same way many people do. And I found that it's really easy to fit into pockets of time and not have to find huge spaces to work in. If I can help you with that, would you want to know more? Curiosity keeps the conversation going.
Love it. And Becky, how are you finding these conversations inside your parties?
I ask every host at least 5 times throughout the party process. I play a recruiting game and send the rock star message at the end. If at any point I don't get a response, I follow up on it. This is the image and wording I send in a text to all my guests and my host on Wednesday. That opens the door for a conversation. So I just say, hey, Sally, it's hump day. Let's play put a finger down. Hold 5 fingers up, then put one down if you've ever wanted to do something fun, needed extra money for bills, trips, or treats, wished you'd had more flexibility with your schedule, wanted to use your credit card less, dreamed of traveling more. How many fingers did you put down? On Friday, I send the rockstar message to everyone that commented at least once in the party. I'm just looking for a conversation.
So let's break this down. You send the text mid-party. It creates engagement. It gives you a reason to follow up. And that follow-up then turns into a recruiting conversation.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Love it. Christy, how about you?
Do a little differently, but the same idea. I focus on getting the bookings first, but anytime someone shows interest in a product, like if they say they want something specific, then I'm starting a conversation about a booking. If they want the free product, I'm showing them how they can get it as a consultant as well.
This is so important. So you're not waiting for conversations, you're creating opportunities for conversations. And I also want everyone to hear something underneath all of this, that really these conversations are happening consistently. Becky and Christy both aren't looking for one recruiting conversation once in a while. They're intentionally creating multiple recruiting conversations in every party. And that consistency really matters. So, Becky, what would you say people really want to know before they say yes?
I love when people tell me they don't have time for this business. My response is usually a reality check for them that really gets them thinking. In my experience, most people want to know how much time it will take and will it be worth their while. They already assume that it'll take too much time and think we don't make any money or think it's rude to ask us about money. So I address it right away and ask how much money they'd like to make and how much time they have to spend. And this is my response. Most people don't start a side gig because they have extra time on their hands. They start it because they don't. I love the flexibility to be able to do this in the little pockets of time I do have here and there and from anywhere I need to be. If time wasn't an issue, what would interest you most about the idea of trying this out? Free products, extra income, flexibility?
Christy, how about you?
Time is always usually the biggest objection. So I'll flip it and I'll say something that most people can connect to, like go look at your screen time. How much time are you already spending scrolling online? Most people usually laugh at that because they know it's true. Because most people already have the time, they just don't realize it. And I show them that this can fit into pockets of time, while they're watching TV, sitting in the car, waiting in drive-through line. It just fits and it's worth it. When I give them these ways to find the time, they're so much more interested. And I know once they start, it's so much easier to fit in because they know they actually started to enjoy it.
I love that you come from that funny place of checking your screen time. I'm sure you have a lot of people that relate to that right away. Now, most people don't actually need a full business explanation first. They need help understanding. Can I fit this into my life? And is it worth my time? So if you've got someone that's at about a 7, feeling curious but a little hesitant, and they ask, how does this really work? How do you keep that answer simple? Becky, let's start with you.
Sure. I say you pick your kit, we do your launch party together, I help you get your first bookings, and I'm with you every step of the way. That's it. They don't need more than that to get started. Then I help them get going and earning rewards.
I'm with you every step of the way. That really is a little bit of a security blanket for them. I love that statement. And Christy, how about you?
I had to learn that. That was a learned behavior for me because I used to say too much and overwhelm people. Now I just focus on just the first step because if they can see themselves starting, they're way more likely to say yes. We can handle the rest after they get started. So I really like to keep my focus on their launch party and those first few bookings that I can help them get that.
Now, notice both Christy and Becky stayed focused on the first step, not the whole business, not every detail, just helping someone picture themselves getting started. So let's talk about asking. How do you invite without feeling pushy? Becky, we'll start with you.
You have to make it about them, and they'll never feel like you're being pushy. You can offer the business over and over and over again, even after multiple no's, if you follow my 3-step process. So first, you want to acknowledge that you've asked, that they've said no, and any concerns or hesitations. Don't pretend that they've not said no before. The second thing is use my Ben rule and offer something beneficial, exciting, and or new to them. And the third thing is extend the invitation again.
And Christy, how about you?
I always like to come back to what's holding you back from giving it a try. The biggest 2 things I hear is time, and I'm not a salesperson. So for not being a salesperson, I go back to using the feel, felt, found. I know how you feel. I felt the same way. But what I found is I don't need to be a salesperson. People just love Pampered Chef, just like at the party you were at. And that's what makes it even better. That's where the real conversation happens. And why I love being on the phone. They can just stare at a message, but on the phone, the conversation will continue and I can guide them and really talk with them.
The real conversation usually starts after that first hesitation. That's why staying curious matters so much. Christy, what mindset shift changed everything for you?
This business isn't for everyone, but it is for everyone to try. That took the pressure off for me. It's my job to be curious about people and to offer it and not to decide for them.
Love it. And Becky, how about you?
I don't think I ever needed a mindset shift with recruiting. I've always just been passionate about showing people how they can do this, no matter their background or busy schedule. So I guess the mindset shift would be theirs. I like to overcome their concerns of, I wish I could, but I can't, and just show them how they can.
Love it. I love both of those answers. All right. So you've heard how they do it, the questions, the follow-up, how they guide conversations, and how they keep things simple. So now it's your turn. We want you to formulate your message. Who is someone who recently told you no that could be a yes? And formulate that message using the Ben approach that you learned about. Write down what you'll say to follow up on your worksheet. Now we want you to pause the recording and complete the activity on your worksheet, and then come back when you're finished and we'll be ready to wrap up.